A city is not a museum. A city is a really kind of almost a living, breathing organism.
Austin's the greatest city on earth. Unfortunately, the secret is out.
Our existential challenge is affordability issues.
The American dream of owning a home is harder than ever. It's especially out of reach for Austinites, who are facing every issue imaginable. We traveled to Texas to learn more about their housing crisis and possible solutions.
Austin population growth has been growing at a very high clip for almost 150 years. What changed in the 80s is that many different types of housing were limited or even banned to a certain extent.
Think of a land development code as having zoning tools. So you look at a piece of land, you look at the needs of a community, and then you can figure out what you can craft to fit on this land that fits within that zoning tool. We rewrote our land development code, and there was a big down zoning for much of Austin.
Austin's zoning code hasn't been updated since 1984, when the city was less than half its current population, and housing supply didn't keep pace.
The housing crisis has just reached a level where even upper middle class folks are struggling to find housing in Austin. We saw a slow and steady appreciation of housing prices really since the Great Recession. And then in the last couple of years, we've gone from 6% to we're looking at 20% a year appreciation in home prices.
So Austin was a big benefactor of these pandemic moves. People who were newly able to work remotely moved their families and their high salaries to Austin. These low interest rates allowed them to buy single-family homes, buy property, and that has driven up costs for a lot of the existing Austin residents.
We've got two sets of problems in a place like Austin. Low-income people having a hard time affording housing. And then there's another set of problems. Our zoning laws are making it too expensive to build new housing that even the middle class could afford.
So, back in 2012, in an effort to get ahead of the coming wave, the City Council adopted a plan called Imagine Austin to recommend a new zoning framework.
In Imagine Austin, it calls for a new land development code that promotes a compact and connected city. We had this process, we dubbed it Code Next. A small group of homeowners then filed suit and unfortunately blocked that new code from being passed.
Code Next is stuck in the courts right now. Unclear what's going to happen.
You run into the culture wars and NIMBYism as soon as you try to do that. Folks that are in these legacy neighborhoods that are within a few minutes of being downtown, that are there because they like the big yards, and they like the space that they have.
Part of the problem, advocates say, are restrictive zoning codes that have existed in Austin for decades. It restricts what kind of dense housing can be built where, and it gives property owners a lot of say in what kinds of developments can come into their neighborhoods.
One of the most problematic aspects of Austin's zoning regulations are the minimum lot size for a single-family home. We have a minimum 5,700 square foot lot size for somebody to build a single-family home. That is the biggest of any of the major cities in Texas.
So now that housing costs have grown, where we have these single-family zoned areas, we're just seeing $1 million homes, $2 million homes replace those former homes that were just torn down. And so we're not gaining housing inventory, but then we're also watching that median home value of all those neighborhoods skyrocket.
The East Cesar Chavez neighborhood is located on the east side of Austin and was historically one of the most diverse communities in the city. But gentrification amid the housing crisis has pushed old residents farther away from downtown.
In East Austin, we have a zip code 78702. That area is now one of the most posh areas in Austin. So single-family homes that not that long ago were $40,000 are now over $1 million.
Places like East Austin, which are predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, have depressed land values, which means it's easier for developers to come and build there, versus in communities like West Austin and Central Austin, which are more expensive to build on and which have whiter, wealthier homeowners who are able to deter and delay these new construction projects. So where building happens is very much influenced by who lives in these neighborhoods and what kind of political power is exerted there.
The worst thing that we can do for displacement and gentrification of our working class population, especially our black and brown population, is the same thing that we've been doing for the last 20 years. We need to build housing so all the people that are coming because of the Tesla factory, because of the Samsung factory that's going to be built, have housing that they can buy and are not competing to buy the same old little East Austin house. If you're building homes in Austin, the best and most profitable thing that you can do is buy an old home, tear that home down, and build a huge McMansion on that same property. I want that to change to where that same lot is going to be redeveloped with 2 homes, or with 3 homes, or with a 4-plex.
What's really on the table is what are called transition zones, which are areas that are sort of between those busy streets and then those quiet interiors of the neighborhoods. And that's where really a lot of the controversy is right now. How big should those transition zones be? I'll say my personal preference is I'd rather just raise the bar across the whole city. I think that's a simpler and a fairer way to do it. That's in fact what the city of Minneapolis did.
Citywide zoning reform has remained elusive. In the meantime, Austin voters have approved multiple bond measures to build affordable housing, such as a $350 million bond in November 2022.
Honestly, we probably need to add a $250,000 housing bond every 2 years for the next 20 years if we want to get a critical mass of public housing, of affordable, publicly subsidized housing, that there are enough units where we are able to house a lot of our working poor and folks that really need help.
You know, one of the things I'm most proud about in the time that I've been mayor is that our city has taken really big steps, big enough to actually bring forth real transformative change in our city. But if you don't deal with your really big challenges, then they just get bigger.
I think it's important that we look at zoning not only as not a silver bullet, but a double-edged sword. Upzoning can actually do tremendous harm to some communities, and especially the people who are most vulnerable in the market. And upzoning only works to achieve our housing goals if we're pairing it with other tools and collaborations. Solutions like building on public land at deeply affordable rates. I'm a firm believer in community land trusts. Unfortunately, many of the community-based solutions that are truly equitable, they're not moving at scale. The most affordable units we have are the ones we have now, and it costs us much less to protect those and to preserve those than to build new units. It's not to say we shouldn't build new units. We need to build new affordable housing, but we're going to have to disrupt the market as we do it.
You know, I think that cities that are smaller than Austin, that think they may be on the same or a similar trajectory over the next 10, 15, 20 years, should be learning, going to school on us. Goodness knows we did not do the things 10 and 20 years ago that we should have.
I would tell other cities that they have to prepare for the growth that is coming. A lot of times the growth and the change is uncomfortable. There's sometimes a resentment of the newcomers, but if you don't build housing for the people that are moving to your city, you're going to price out your current residents.